this is the verbal summary for the case study. Madeline and Martin are a recently engaged biracial couple that have had to navigate difficult situations thus far in their relationship. While Martin is happy with where the future will take the pair, Madeline feels disconnected from Martin due to cultural differences and is unsure of what their married life will look like. A pressing issue weighing heavy on Madeline's heart is her desire to keep her maiden name and not take Martin's traditional Spanish name, Romero. She feels that if she were to change her name after her marriage to Martin, she would lose all of the sentiment associated with her name and her identity as a result. Over dinner at a Mexican restaurant one Friday evening, Madeline brings up her concern to Martin. Initially, Martin thinks that she wants to keep Anderson as her name in the professional setting, but when she says that she doesn't want to change it at all, he internalizes his hurt more than he expresses it to her. He starts to question whether rushing into a committed relationship so soon was a good idea, and wonders if the woman he is so in love with is ready to commit to him as a partner. Thus, he asks her a very difficult question. Does she really want to spend the rest of her life with him? She responds that there is no doubt she wants to marry him and even mentions her desire to have his children one day. Madeline's logic in not changing her name is that she has worked very hard to create the person she is today and takes pride in her family's heritage, which would be overshadowed if she were to take on the personhood of Madeline Elaine Anderson de Romero. Throughout the discourse, several doubts arise, such as what names their future children will have, what their friends will think, or if Martin's family will accept Madeline as their own. While Martin is understanding of her choice, he doesn't understand why women often want to keep their names and why his fiancée would make such a radical decision rather than respect his culture and embrace tradition in the relationship. At the beginning of the conversation, Martin was more open and communicative with Madeline in his concerns about the big change, but towards the end of their talk, he shies away from truly expressing how he feels. In the end, he voices that she is not considering him in making this compromise and resorts to bottling up his sadness. Ultimately, neither of them says anything more, and they sit in silence feeling hurt, confused, and disconnected by a barrier of miscommunication and lack of transparency. And then for the questions, which include 3 unique and 2 from the case study. So from the unique set of questions, so the first one is, how does communication privacy management theory help explain Madeline's decision to keep her maiden name, and how Martin may understand it in a different way through the same lens?
So Madeline is using boundary coordination to keep her name as her private information, and she's worried about the risks of merging that identity. Martin, however, may see the relationship as requiring permeability. He expects openness and shared identity, so he's interpreting her decision as rejection or lack of commitment.
How does interpersonal communication and the uncertainty reduction theory explain Martin's reaction when Madeline reveals that she wants to keep her maiden name? And how do Martin's feelings impact the situation?
So Martin gains uncertainty over his marital relationship with Madeline after she explains her desire to keep her maiden name. Martin begins to make up some assumptions over his future as a married couple and Madeline's commitment. Further on in the conversation, instead of openly sharing his concerns, Martin decides to bottle up his sentiment over this question, causing even more uncertainty.
For the last unique question, it reads, how can Martin use the STLC to go about the conflict?
So the STLC technique is a communication strategy that stands for stop, think, listen, and communicate. This approach can help Martin navigate the sensitive issue of Madeline wanting to keep her maiden name. Before reacting, Martin should take a pause and collect his thoughts to avoid saying something hurtful. Then he should reflect on what Madeline's choice means to her personally. When they engage in conversation, Martin needs to give Madeline his full attention, maintaining eye contact and showing empathy as she explains her perspective. And after listening, Martin can express his feelings honestly but respectfully. By using the STLC technique, Martin can foster a more constructive dialogue with Madeline.
The questions from the case study, we have 2. The first one is, to what degree do cultural issues affect married name choices?
So cultural values shape what's expected in marriage. In Martin's culture, taking his last name shows respect and unity. So Madeline wants to keep her last name, feels like rejection to him. Both want to protect their image. Madeline wants to keep her identity, while Martin wants to stay in tradition. Their different cultural expectations create tensions between the two, even though they both have good intentions.
Considering both Madeline and Martin's perspectives, what are the possible decisions this couple might take?
Given that Martin is strongly family-oriented, he seems reluctant to defy his family's wishes and traditions. Further, Martin is greatly influenced by his family's approval, and due to the magnitude of family values and a strongly held belief that love is directly tied to taking a name, a possible decision would be for Madeline to yield to changing her name. Self-identity, which is also important, is also more prone to change as it is built upon new experiences. On the other hand, family values are reinforced by tradition and could feel like betraying others as well as history.
Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
I think we're good here.